I'm calling to order the Pickens County Council work session Tuesday, February 18, 2025. First up is the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Councilor Chris Wallace.
Lord, we come before you tonight thankful and grateful for all the many blessings you give us and the protections you provide us. Please be with us tonight as we meet. Please give us discernment. Please help us to do your will. And all these things we ask in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, second item up is consideration of acceptance of grant funding for the Commerce Park. So Mr. Roper is going to give us a quick history and a timeline on the two industrial parks that we have now. What else is needed to get them ready to show to prospective companies, and then he's going to discuss the water line request.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we're going to do a little musical chairs here because I'm going to ask Allison Tyler and Emily Brzezinski to come up and Director Raines to step back while we talk about this. But while they're changing seats, Mr. Chairman, I do want for the public's information and for council's information, you'll recognize the room looks a little different tonight. We've ordered a significant number of more chairs. That's why you see the space back there. But we're trying to learn the lessons we learned last fall during the DSO conversation, so we'll have more room. But we appreciate y'all bearing with us as we fill out the room and get it working correctly. The other thing I would say before I get into it, this is Ms. Brzezinski's first opportunity to appear before you all. She's here as a resource. A lot of this information that you're going to see, she helped prepare tonight about the farmhouse site. Specifically, we're talking about a grant opportunity that we had. Mr. Chairman, you'd asked that I approach this as kind of an overview to let everybody know. So that's what this is intended to be. You'll see three big pieces of property here. The Pickens County Commerce Park up here, the existing Commerce Park, that's where TaylorMade is, that's where Reliable is, that's where Keymark, that's where FN America is going in, is in that existing Commerce Park. The farmhouse site, which we'll be talking about here mostly tonight, is directly across 123 from the existing Commerce Park. People may wonder why we call it farmhouse, big dog, and the reason, Mr. Chairman, is because when we're in active negotiations with the property owners, we don't want that to be public information. Sometimes we don't even want to know the people we're negotiating with that we're the county, because if they find that out, the price starts going up. And when that price goes up, the taxpayers are not getting the same bang for their buck. So we use codes, and South Carolina FOIA law allows us to use codes until such time as a contract is struck, and then it's got to be public information. So the farmhouse site is what we still call it, although it was purchased from the Longs and the Millers. So those purchases are complete, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. As opposed to the Big Dog site, which is a couple of miles down the road, still on 123, behind the Enviro Mulch property. If you've been down that road lately, you'll see that is the property one of the properties that SCDOT's contractor is using for the debris removal. And we agreed to that immediately. Director Farley signed off on that immediately because he knew that we would get some lot clearing for free that way. So that's worked out really well. But talking specifically, before I get to the farmhouse information, I want to talk to you a little bit about what's across the street because it gives context, Mr. Chairman. And that is the existing Commerce Park, which is a little over 300 acres of property that the county bought starting back in 1999, 2000, 2001. The county leaders at that time had the vision, and they bought that property out of an estate, a family estate. And through the years, we have used that to attract, I believe it's 1,800 jobs. All of the money that went into building the Commerce Park, the grading, the purchase price, the roads, the sewer, the electrical, all of the infrastructure that was necessary to build that park has been more than paid back in the tax value that we've realized. So now when Reliable pays its taxes, when Abbott pays their taxes, when Peabody Engineering pays its taxes, that's going directly into the general fund through those existing FELO agreements. And because all the infrastructure has been paid off, That money helps fund county operations and keep our property tax low. So that's the whole theory with this. Not only does it provide good paying jobs, good high paying jobs in this Commerce Park, it also helps to reduce our overall tax burden. Moving across the street into the farmhouse site, I can tell you that we purchased, well, let's actually go back to the Big Dog site just to talk about that and focus in. The county purchased 90 some odd acres, 90.47 acres at about $30,000 per acre in 2022. That total purchase price is $2.7 million to purchase the Big Dog site. For those of you from Liberty, that's just below Liberty High School, between Liberty High School and 123 on Ruhama. Of that $2.7 million needed for the acquisition, $1.5 million was given to us in a grant from the South Carolina Power Team. That's a conglomeration of the electrical co-ops in the state. That's who that is. $1 million was given in for the purchase from a grant from Blue Ridge Electric Cooperative. They're the service provider there, and so they're very interested in having electrical users there, so they helped in the acquisition. $300,000 came from the Department of Commerce, $125,000 came from AT&T, and $57,000 came from New Horizons Electric Cooperative, which is also a member of the Power Team. In total, $2.9 million of grants were collected by the folks at Alliance Pickens to offset the purchase and a portion of the site development there for sewer line extensions, clearing the property, grubbing the property, and bringing it to grade. Total funds committed end up being about $4.6 million. That's all of our matches. That's the money that's been previously committed to bringing the site online with the sewer line extension and with some of the grading. Sewer line extension should be completed here next month. I think that's been going well. And Mr. Farley is not here tonight, and Emily is here tonight because Mr. Farley is actively out there with a potential for the Big Dog site. The good thing about the Big Dog site is once we have placed an industry, once we've announced an industry that we've committed there, it frees up some of those partners that I listed to then help us with the farmhouse site. So they'll be interested in continuing to partner with us because it continues to make sense for them and for us. So moving on to the farmhouse site specifically, that property was acquired by Pickens County ending in 2023 at about 29.5 per acre. It's a total of 167 acres, more or less, and we purchased that a little over a year ago. The money for that acquisition came entirely from the county coffers. So we paid cash from that. Our grant money was tied up in the other location. And so once we have someone there, then that'll free up that potential for grant money for site work specifically. We did get, I think, some money from the Department of Commerce on that. But right now, the issue before us tonight is taking the next step on the farmhouse site, which is providing water there on the farmhouse site. And that is in the Southside Water District. The Southside Water District is my home, where I was born and raised. I don't live there anymore. I have no financial dealings with the Southside Water District. I stumbled into that as I don't want to suggest that I do. But that being said, Southside Water District, that's down around Flat Rock Church, which is where my family still lives. But they're the water provider down there, and this grant that we've sought out from the rural infrastructure folks is a 75% grant. You'll see to build the water line out, we have a contract estimate on that of $1.8 million to build that water line. And basically the rural infrastructure application, which Emily and Mr. Farley applied and were awarded, I think you see the press release where we were awarded that, awards that money to us in Southside, provided that we could raise the 25% match. So the deal we have with Southside is we split the 25% match. It would be $600,000 that would have to come up for the match. We've agreed to, pending council's approval, contribute $300,000 of general fund money to that match. Specifically, I can tell you the way that it's going to work is this is right here, this is 178. the road from Liberty to Anderson. And there is a water line there, the main water line that runs down to the south side tower, if you can picture that, down in Flat Rock community. There's a line down there, and it's a 12-inch line. So the grant would pay for running that 12-inch line all the way to the site and running an 8-inch line across the site and connecting to an existing line on Ann Street. The reason this is good for Southside is, number one, they would love to have these customers one day. That's the reason they're willing to put $300,000 of their money into it. But it also, this line now that you see in purple and orange, which, whose idea was that? Garnet black was not available, I guess, but purple and orange is now a 2-inch PVC pipe. So a side benefit of what we would be doing here is that the 70-some customers along this route will now have a much more reliable source of water than the 2-inch PVC pipe that they're on now. So members of council, I'll be glad to answer any questions I can. Ms. Brzezinski's here also to supplement that, but I hope that gives you a good overview and some context to our ask here a couple of weeks back for us to accept the grant. In accepting the $1.25 million in grant money from the state, we are committing $300,000, as is Southside Water.
Okay. Any questions from anybody?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So when I look at the loop, and anytime you build a loop like that on a water line, and you were talking about the 2-inch PVC, I'm assuming there'll be positive effects for fire protection in that area as well.
Yeah, I can tell you, and I may not have this data in front of me, but in addition to the loop, okay, so it's 8,000 linear feet of 12-inch pipe, 2,000 linear feet of 8-inch pipe, 7 fire hydrants along that route. So there'll be 7 fire hydrants that aren't there now.
That was
water pressure now.
So, perfect.
Any other questions?
I have one. So the 12-inch, that'll actually be on Carthy Road, not 123.
Yeah, it'll be coming down Carthy. That's correct. And as a side note there, all of this will be on existing right-of-way or in the existing roadway.
Actually, I want to just tell you why. I've actually voted against both of these projects up until this point. I want to tell people why. When I joined the council, the industrial park at Cartier Road was nearly full. And I voted for the site upgrades, for the open spots. I voted for the tax incentives. I voted to give the land to the companies in those open spots in order to fill it up. We inherited a lot of sunk costs in that park when I did when I got on the council. So I felt there was no other choice. You couldn't just abandon it at that point. So I thought I had to see the park through its end. What happened was, when the last lot was filled, what I did is I compared the result of the park versus what was promised. And I was there the night they passed it in 2002. And I remember asking the chairman, I think it might be Ron Harrison, is that his name?
That would be right.
And I said, how much is it going to cost? The answer was $4 million. How many jobs is it going to create? 3,300, and it's going to do it in 10 years. Now, the actual numbers were probably about half of that. The cost, the last number I got was 13 million. I think we did another 1.5 million on that last site, so it was about 15 million. The number of jobs that were created were about 1,800, but there were people in the county already that moved there, like JR Automation, I think, was one in St. Jude moved there. So I think the new jobs was about 1,400. And it took about 20 years to actually fill the park. So I was disappointed in, the park and how much it costs. The second thing is, I think back then we needed all that growth in 2002. And today I just felt there's too much growth. And the county had fallen behind on basic services. So I felt that way too. So I adopted the position that I wasn't going to vote for a new industrial park. I felt, and that's the idea, when the county buys the land, the county does the clearing, the grading, puts in the utilities, gives the tax incentive, freezes the tax rates for 20 years, and it gives the land and the improvements. I just felt that was too much of a giveaway at this point to continue doing that. And the thing that really bothered me the most is we got about 150 manufacturers in this county, and about 25 of them we give tax breaks to, we give land to, we give improvements to, and the rest of it, the government really doesn't do anything for. And actually, in reality, it raises their burdens. So I always had indigestion with that. So I voted against it, particularly the farmhouse project, which was, I think that was 160 acres. I think that we probably got about 6 million in that project already. Big Dog, we did get a credit on the purchase. I think we got about 1.7 million in that. So I just preferred to spend that money on services that were being stressed out by growth rather than to reach out and do another industrial park. So my question, I guess, to everybody here is, am I alone in this thinking going forward? Or does anybody have a similar thought on this?
I think since we already own this property, and I voted against buying the farmhouse property because I basically felt that we were paying too much for it. But I do feel like this water line is an opportunity we're probably not going to get again to spend $300,000 for over $1 million water line. The residents in that area can benefit from it. Now, unintended consequence of this water line, is that going to spur additional development in that neighborhood? Or is that something you can't foretell?
I cannot, even the wise do not see all ends, Mr. Lawless. I cannot foresee what might happen there. I do know in that regard, using the farmhouse site for light industrial like we've done across the street is not going to be the intense use that we would have if it were subdivisions or, that would be different.
Well, I guess wording that same question differently. The need for industrial water supply, I would think, would dictate future tapping on of this new water line.
That's a good point. Yes.
Is there a metric to gauge?
That's beyond
that?
Yeah, that's beyond my expertise. We'll certainly ask Southside that question.
Does that make sense what I'm asking?
It does. You're saying, is that type of water line going to preclude?
Well,
residential?
It's like sewer wastewater capacity. We need to maintain a reserve for industry, but that can quickly get gobbled up by residential if you're not keeping an eye on.
Yeah, so
I think the water line's a great deal.
Right. The industrial use will take precedent because that's the reason it's being built.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
I want to clarify, you just said we spent 1.7 million on Big Dog, but I thought that the numbers Mr. Roper just gave us said that we were 100% covered in grants on Big Dog.
I don't. You know it?
No, so we are, in terms of the grants we have, they're more than the acquisition cost, but some of that involves local matches, so that will be ultimately when we've paid for grading and the sewer line and everything else, that's where the 1.7 will come in.
Okay.
So it's well more than, I'd say it's 60% or more is covered by grant funding.
By other people, right.
Yeah, because you got land, and then you got the utilities, and then you got clearing and grading.
That's right.
And I think that project's 1.7.
That's right.
The other one looks to me like it's going to be 6 or 7. I'm not arguing that not against the water line. I mean, I'm not arguing even against the sunk cost is so high at this point, you wouldn't just abandon it and try to sell it. I mean, it would make no sense. I guess my point is, what I'm trying to say is, I just don't feel comfortable continuing to buy land and creating more industrial parks. I mean, I don't think we should. I think we should get out of the development business in that way, or at least put it on pause. I mean, I do like the Speedway project because the developers actually buying the land, they're working to put the utilities in, they're working to do the grading, they're working with DOT, and we're giving incentives along the way, versus us being the developer. I mean, I don't feel comfortable with that, and I just, like I said, on this one, the sunk cost is so high, I might actually vote for it, because at this point, like I said, if we turn around and sold it, we would get a third of it if we got lucky.
Mr. Chairman, just for point of clarity, last year, what did we bring in taxes in the industrial park?
I don't have that number in front.
You got a ballpark?
Approximately 2.8 million in annual direct to Pickens County tax revenue is occurring, like I said, annually.
2.8 million annually. And at what point did we break even on what we've spent out there, or have we broke even on what it's taken to build that industrial park?
I can certainly confirm that we have broken even. In what year we broke even, I have not gone into that analysis yet, but I certainly could look into that.
So last year, we put $2.8 million in the county operating fund, everything paid for, lock, stock, and barrel. We put $2.8 million that would have had to come from the taxpayers if that property wasn't there developing. And I think that's the point that folks miss when you talk about industrial parks. It is an investment, and Ron Harrison was wrong. There was a lot of people wrong in 08, 07, 09. And I'm not being a smart by saying that, but there were a lot of people wrong then. And if you look at that time period, that's exactly when that was. It was longer than 10 years. It did take a lot longer than anybody anticipated. It took 20 years to do what they wanted to do in 10, but it's doing it today, which is allowing us to keep our taxes down for everybody else. And I think that's a point that we can't miss. And that's all I wanted to say, Mr. Chairman.
Also, I haven't pulled up the comprehensive plan in a while. From my understanding, the comprehensive plan specifically identified the 123 corridors where we wanted business and industrial development, right?
That's
so
correct.
The opportunity to add water to the 123 corridor where we're only paying half of 25%. We're paying 12% of the project to bring water to the area where we've said we want people to be. People don't want companies and industry sprawled throughout the county. We want it isolated along 123. So having almost the entire project paid for at this point is a real savings and keeps us in line with our comprehensive plan.
And Mr. Chairman and Mr. Roper, if I could add, one of the additional benefits to this line that has not been identified in this conversation is the line on Ann Drive actually is currently served by the water tower that is located just past Easley High School and will be connecting to the water tower in Southside Water District. So it'll be creating higher water pressure and better fire protection past these 70 households that we've identified to be served directly from this project line. So we're looking to create a larger impact across multiple districts as well.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think everybody would have to agree that the amount of jobs that these companies are creating now is about half of what they were doing 15 years ago. Because technology is replacing that. So when they come back and they want a renewal on this, I don't think one company has reached its job target.
Some of them have, Mr. Chairman.
Have they?
Yeah.
It's been very, okay, so some.
But I would say,
Most,
Mr. Chairman, if I could, that there's a pro and a con to that. There's an equanimity that we need to have about that because it may be fewer jobs, but it'll be more, because of that, it'll be more equipment investment, which is also tax income.
Then you're also giving them fee and booze.
That's right, but it's still coming in.
The other thing is, when I did a calculation on the actual dollar return, when you have an investment, I buy a piece of property and I rent it. I get rental income, which in this case is tax revenue for you guys. And the property appreciates. So I'm getting returns in two ways. I'm getting an 8% return on the annual, and then I'm getting a 15% return as the property goes up. When you actually look at the industrial park, you're giving away that whole second thing. You're giving the property and the improvements to the company. So you're getting no capital gain. So the return you're getting is only the flow of the tax flow. And I'm telling you, when I calculated it, was like 8% outperformed the Dow Jones Industrial.
There are people out there that are doing exactly what you're talking about. It's something we haven't done in this county yet, where you build the building, the county builds the building. There were two projects last week that I think went to locations. One was a Suzu, went to a location because the county had invested in actually building the facility. And then you're the landlord, kind of like Speedway, but we would be the landlord. But that's going in the opposite direction of what you're
What I'm saying, but I'm saying it kills your return. When you give the land away and all the improvements, that's most, like as a landlord, most of the gain I get is from the land that's going up underneath the house. You know,
we want to talk about building spec buildings out there. I think we would be very open to that conversation.
I'm saying no, but I'm just saying is the return isn't as high as you think because the number of jobs is in decline and you're giving away the land and all the improvements. So you don't get that appreciation. That's all I'm saying. I don't think they're as lucrative as they were 20 years ago. And the fact that we're getting so much growth in Pickens County now, they're even less desirable. So my point is if you came to us tomorrow with another project for another 100 acres, I'd be voting no again. That'd be my feeling. Any other, like I said, this one, I guess we have to see it through, but new ones, I don't know. Anything else?
We need to make a motion.
We'll talk about this. We talked about this as the last meeting, whether we vote to approve this or not. I personally am comfortable with it because it was on the agenda last time. We had public input on it if people wanted to do that. We don't have to tonight. We could just put it on the February, what would be, I guess, the March 3rd meeting. It's up to you. How do you feel about it?
It doesn't have a deadline? Yeah, I think it had a deadline.
45 days.
I think we said we had to vote on it in this meeting. I think generally accepting something that's already been presented and on public record is fine with me to vote on it today.
Okay.
Because I don't want to risk losing this incredible grant because we didn't
Okay, so
sign it.
is that a motion to accept it as presented?
I make a motion to accept this grant as offered.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, same sign. That passes unanimously. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, next item up is number 3, recycle centers. And we're going to discuss 2 things here, or at least 2 things here tonight. One is going to be sort of an assessment and a review of the recycle centers, and then second, recycle items and process. Mr. Roper?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. If you smelled smoke when you walked in, it's because Steve Raines, Director Raines, has been down at the landfill. We appreciate the work Director Raines is doing in that regard. But we did want to come tonight and update you and make sure everybody has the same data on our recycling program, on our transportation of our recyclables, on the capital equipment, talk about our revenues on recyclables and what works well in the market. And so in that regard, I want to recognize Director Raines to step you through that. And then also Director Robinson, our Public Works Director, is here as well in case questions come up. But without further delay, I'll ask Director Raines to brief you.
So we currently have 8 recycling centers across the county, 2 of which have been kind of on my radar for the 4 years I've been here. I know one of your goals that I received was to kind of look at them, see where we are with them, see what we can do to update them, get them where they need to be. So the number 1 on my list is Willow Springs. We are currently looking at the property there to see if it's viable to reconstruct that site to make it larger.
And just for clarity, that's Table Rock, that's not Willow Springs. I apologize for the picture being different than what he's talking about.
So Willow Springs, for those of you that haven't been there, is the smallest site that we have. You drive up, you have to turn around and back up to the compactors and dump everything just in a little compact ball. So it's really hard to get in and out. And with the growth in the county, that's one of the stations one of 2 that's really getting overwhelmed at this time. So one of the things that I've looked at is with the size of the property, we think it's viable to be able to rebuild that one to make it into a horseshoe style like the Easily Recycle Center and the Best Pack Center the way it was. And we think that will make it more viable. Yeah, that one's going to be just the same. Flipping channels on the other. But so that one is one of those that's the top of the list. The second one behind that is one that we're kind of Rodney and I kind of talked about earlier today. Again, is Midway. There's a lot of growth up in that area off Midway Road, East Preston McDaniel, all up in there. We have a lot of growth happening up there in the area, subdivisions and things like that going in. And that station is really overwhelmed. But the size of that site is not conducive to expand. Even to refurbish that site is not going to help anything. So one of the suggestions I have on that, which would be a year or 2 down the road, would be to try to find a site up in that area that's more conducive for a larger site, a larger facility, construct a new facility and close that one down and keep it for, of all things, a debris storage site for debris management. I would not want to get rid of that facility because it's got infrastructure that we can utilize in things like we've had over the past 3 or 4 months with Helene coming through. With tornadoes and things like that, it's been kind of more prevalent over the 4 years that I've been here. And I've lived here all my life, but I've seen more of it in the last 10 years probably than I have in my lifetime. So with keeping that in mind, that's one of the things that I'm trying to make sure that whatever we do, we have an alternative resource with these sites if we do have to do something along those lines with it. But right now, as far as the recycling centers go, those are the two sites that are specifically on the radar, Willow Springs being number one, Midway being number two in that area. And later on, you know, we can get.
Well, let me just ask you about what you have here, because it's really good.
Yes, sir.
information. The blue bin, you know, you're on a recycle, refresh of what, 4 every year?
Yeah, so yeah, step through those because those are examples. Some of these are not ours, but those are examples.
Yeah, so.
How would you rate them overall?
So I've given you guys a list. So the 40-yard containers, we actually bought quite a few with ARPA money a few years back. So that got us up into a good working area. So at that time we had, I think, 88 containers, and we replaced 28, I think was the number. Was it 20?
20
But I had 8 more that I think I bought grant money that year. So 72 total now that we have in circulation of the 40-yard containers. 22 of those 72 are in poor condition. We're patching those to keep them going until, you know, we can get them replaced on that replacement cycle we have. The remaining 50 are in good to excellent condition.
So do you think the refresh cycle's strong enough there to fix that problem?
I never think that it's strong enough for containers, just because the 40-yard containers they take more abuse than any of them. All of the containers you see on the wall that you throw things in when you go into the recycle centers are the 40-yard containers. They take a lot of abuse. They're moved a lot. They're moved several times a day. So they take a beating. And if we get 6 to 8 years out of those containers without having to do major repairs to them, we've done really well with them. So I think we are trying to figure out what a good cycle would be to replenish those yearly. Right now, I know we get 4 a year in CIP, and then I typically get 1 or 2 with grant money. That money's kind of I've been told that grant money from DES is going to have to be utilized for other things besides containers moving forward. So I don't know that I'm going to be able to get those 1 or 2 anymore moving forward. So those 4 yards are something that we need to look at.
What about the compactors and the cans that you see at the recycle center?
The compactor cans, which are the ones you see in the bottom left corner here, we're pretty good on those containers. We have 36 total, 16 of which are excellent, 9 are fair, and 11 are bad. But we are currently replacing compactors 2 per year, which puts them on an 8-year replacement cycle. That's 3 years further than I would like to see it go, but it's a feasible plan, because with 16 stations replacing 2 a year, that puts them on that 8-year cycle, and it's very feasible. It works out great. When we buy a compactor, we get 2 of these. We call these receiver cans. We get 2 of these with each compactor. So every year we get 4 new containers and 2 new compactors, and that's a cycle that's ongoing. So the compactor cans aren't a problem.
So those are in good shape.
They're in great shape.
How are you doing on roll-off trucks and drivers?
So as far as currently staffing wise, we have 14 total slots for drivers in the landfill, and they're currently all filled.
Wow, good.
For the first time since I've been here. And all of those slots carry a CDL, but 3 of those people aren't driving trucks. They're working actually in the landfill facility running equipment. So we do need more help manpower wise in the landfill facility. But currently that's full. As far as roll-off trucks, we have 3 brand new ones that we received this year, actually over the last 3 months. We received 2 new ones last year, so that gave us 5 really good trucks. And then 3 years ago, we got 2. So our fleet is looking better. We still have a couple that are on the backside that we're using kind of as floater trucks and spares.
Okay, so the blue those blue bins, roll-off trucks are grabbing those bins and bringing them back to the landfill.
Yes.
On any day, how many of those roll-off trucks are on the road?
When all trucks are running and we're not having issues, we're running 4 trucks, maintain 2 stations each, and then we have 2 floater trucks that pick up slack. So each of those first 4 drivers they have 2 stations they're responsible for out of the 8. So they pull those stations, and the 2 floaters, if one station's getting more than the others, they will go help pull that waste to keep them caught up.
Okay, so it sounds like you're in good shape there. So you're saying you still have new ones that are coming online that aren't on this list?
No, sir.
Okay,
They're all on the list.
Okay, gotcha. That's the more
Yes, sir.
510 miles. I gotcha.
Right.
And how about attendants working at the stations? I know you have 2 attendants at what, 5 stations?
Yes, so currently we have 37 total slots. No available slots at this point. At Easley, we have 2 per shift, and that's 6 total, because both of those attendants on each shift work 12-hour shifts. At North Old Pendleton, Bestpac, Midway, and Chastain Road, we have 2 per shift, but only 5 total, because 2 of those are the 8-hour attendants, or one of those at each of those stations is 8-hour attendants that we talked with you guys about 2 years ago, I think it was. And the council allowed us to have those 8-hour people at those stations. So instead of having them there, having that 3rd extra person, we only have 2 because they work 8-hour shifts. So they work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And they're there from 11:30 to 7:30 every day.
All right.
And then we have 2 attendant supervisors.
As far as the recycle centers and what they have, does anybody have any questions about those? Councilman Holloway?
Had a few comments that was made to me, some input on the Davisville. It says there was a drain under the compactor's been clogged for about a year, and water puddling. Summer months, stench gets pretty good, strong with that. They think it probably could be an easy fix with some type of grate over that particular drain. Also, they believe they could reduce some of the complaints if the attendants had the ability to vet some of the individuals as far as address and issue stickers themselves. Another issue they brought up is the litter control officers. They could use them spending some more time at the recycling center per day, and they believe that would help as well. Oh yeah, and 4th thing, better signage. Even though there's signs at the entrance of the road, people bypass that without looking, and when they get to the actual dumpster, they're typically confused as to what to do. So they would request some better signage or more defining signage at the dumpster itself to clarify that.
Okay. Anyone else have anything about the recycle centers themselves?
Willow Springs, I get the most complaints of any of them in my district.
That's the one I visit, and I mean, it's obvious why. It was, I don't know the backstory on that, but I feel like it was designed on the back of the napkin, because it doesn't flow like the others do.
Well, at the time it was built, there were not as many
Not a
people
lot of
in the
people
6 mile area as there are now.
Right.
Yeah.
I really think that's,
Yes, sir.
I'm glad that's number 1 on your list.
Yes, sir.
I have a couple questions. The commercial businesses will dump tires into recycle centers. I mean, that was a problem in the past. Now, what are we doing, Mr. Roper, I get it all rotten, to stop that? I know that was an issue years ago.
And it says we lose $78,000 a year
Yeah.
on tire recycling. Is that recycling or just getting it out of
That's
Pickens County?
recycling. That's
I'll
recycling.
get to the recycling.
Yeah, it's something I have talked with our environmental control officers about. I'm a big believer in that I don't know how to put this without sounding colloquial. We need to make a couple of big busts. We're out there, finding these tire dumpings, and we suspect, looking back there at the back, we suspect that these are commercial establishments that are allowing employees to bring them forward at a time. I don't know, Mr. Chairman, the last time you bought tires. I know the last time I bought tires, I left with 4 new tires and no old tires.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know where all these tires are coming from. But it is a problem. We're looking at different ways. I don't want to talk about methods. I don't want to try to sound like a police officer, but we're looking at different methods on the enforcement side. But I think the question, if we could publicize the question and let them know that we're emphasizing, let the folks at the Upstate Journal know, that we're emphasizing enforcement and we're looking for the opportunity to catch one of these unscrupulous commercial establishments that are not, what they do, Mr. Chairman, is they collect $2 a tire from you that's supposed to go to disposal, and then they pocket it.
And then they dump it with us.
So we've got to figure this part out, but it's a real problem.
The other complaint I have too is when, on Saturdays, when the landfills close, a lot of commercial businesses will try to go into the land, to our recycle centers. So like some, mom and pop.
So
They do that all week long.
yeah, I'll tell you.
Now, are our litter control officers, do they have a presence there? Do the police have a presence there? I mean, I've always argued when Rick Clark was the sheriff, I said, Rick, when you guys are writing reports, just have them stand at the recycle, sit at the recycle center with a car and a gun and a badge.
Director Raines could correct me. The sheriff's office does do that from time to time where they sit there. Our environmental enforcement officers have been spending more and more time. They probably spent more time there in the last 6 months than they ever have in terms of being there and being a presence there. So it's something we are working on. It's a very good point.
Our litter enforcement officers have been doing phenomenal. They're being very present, and they're being diligent about it. And they have quelled a lot of different things that have been going on in the recycle centers. But I haven't had a chance to speak with the new sheriff yet. That's something that was on the agenda, and then we had other things happen at the landfill that's kind of backed up a lot of things over the last few weeks. But I do want to speak with him because for us, it's not necessarily that I need him to park officers there or deputies there. Just ride through. They ride by these stations 100 times a day, just slow roll through. Presence is everything. Okay. And to me, that's a big thing. And I've got a lot of feedback from some of the deputies. Several deputies are doing that. I know Midway Road was one of our stations that we've been getting a lot of contractor play at lately. And I know over the last 2 weeks, the deputies have been 2 or 3 times a day just riding through that station, and it's
Help me understand what the crime is that they're committing, or that we're trying to stop?
Right now, the only crime we have is illegal dumping.
Illegal dumping. Okay, so what are they supposed to be doing with their trash?
So the contractor should be bringing that stuff to the main landfill and paying a tipping fee to dump it.
So they're circumventing their tipping fee by just taking it as if they were
a
regular
resident. Yeah.
Counselor,
Correct.
I'll tell you, I don't know how many of our attendants have heard this story, but I've heard it at the landfill myself when I've been there. You stop a commercial guy from dumping in the bin, it's always grandma's porch. It's always a kitchen remodel for a family member, and so it makes it tough. A lot of the guys are very good, scrupulous, following the rules, going over the scales. But there's a lot of, like the chairman said, mom and pops that are looking to throw the old stuff away. The old deck gets thrown away, and it's tough on our attendants. It's absolutely tough on them.
It overwhelms our system. We have a really good system of how we keep these recycle centers turned over. So, and when the main priority in those recycle centers are household garbage. That's the one thing that by law we have to give our residents a place to dump household garbage. That's the only thing by law we grant it to them. Everything else is kind of the perk. But when you got all these people coming in that aren't supposed to be dumping brown goods in a brown goods container and they keep stacking them up, I shouldn't be pulling 25 brown goods a day and only 8 or 10 of everything else a day. It should be the opposite.
Yeah.
And we're very overwhelmed with the brown goods situation.
Okay, so part 2 is going to be the recycled items.
Mm-hmm.
You have some information on that, and the council, I know you have a strong interest in that. So what do you got on the recycled items? Give us a little report on that.
Okay, so on the recycled items, things that we accept at the recycling centers as well as at the landfill: aluminum, cardboard, plastics, We accept number 1 and 2 plastics, jugs and bottles only, no caps. Metal, paper, tires, batteries, motor oil, cooking oil, antifreeze, oil filters, and e-waste, electronic waste. So those are the recycling items that we accept. This brochure that we have is due to be updated. We've changed a few things, and the market is changing a few things. So there's some things that are going to need to be updated on this. We were accepting glass, but glass is no longer viable. I am looking at some other things with glass. I'm talking to some people right now trying to get some grants to help purchase a piece of equipment that will be a lifesaver with the glass and will actually help me out once we get the expansion on the landfill. But I've got to get that grant before that becomes reality. But those things are all coming in, recycling items that are coming in. All of them that we have coming in right now, the only things that we are, what I consider losing money on, are paper, electronic waste, and tires. Electronic waste and tires will be a forever until we get past the expansion permit so that we can get a tire processing permit. Until that point, tires, we're in a contract where we have to pay a recycler to take those tires. We have to pay for the electronic waste to be accepted too, because there's a ban in the state of South Carolina. We cannot bury electronic waste in a landfill. It's against the law. So those two things we're kind of obligated at this point, and those are a loss. Paper, it's not a massive loss, but it is a loss. But to us, the paper, losing $9,000 a year is kind of minimal with what we make on the other recyclables throughout the year. So keeping that in place is worthwhile and viable with the amount of the other things with the metals, the aluminum, the cardboard. Those are really high-end items, and we get a pretty good profit on those. So as long as we can still manage that and keep in a profit margin, we'll keep those things working as long as we can. The glass, the reason that one did not become viable wasn't so much that it was a problem having the glass, it was what to do with it, with the mountain that we have, because the mountain just kept growing, and nobody, the recyclers that were picking it up when I first started, no longer pick it up, and we couldn't find it. I talked to recyclers all over the Southeast, and nobody was accepting it. The Green New Deal kind of changed that market. It was used heavily in South Georgia for fiberglass insulation. And the Green New Deal kind of pushed us into a more of a fiberboard and a cardboard and a paper type insulation for homes. And so you're seeing that in Rockville more so than you are fiberglass now. So their operations kind of converted over. They're still doing fiberglass, but on a smaller scale. And because of that, there's not a market for the glasses. And that's kind of why we had to pull back after everybody else on that.
Well, I had planned to come in and ask, well, then how is Kite Hill in Clemson on University Still Recycling? And then they put up a sign 2 weeks ago that they're done with glass.
So he was sending all his glass to me.
To you. And then the city of Clemson is still taking it. But doesn't city of Clemson just go directly to county?
They're taking theirs to Oconee County. Their glass is going to Oconee County, and as far as I know, it's just being landfilled. Because there's not really, I know they have a recycler at Oconee County that picks up a minimum amount, but I'm not sure what that number is. I can find out for you and get that information for you. But I know I have talked with Swain Steel over at Oconee County, and they are recycling some of their glass, but they're having the same problem everybody else is. They're not taking all of it. And if you're just taking a little bucket every time you go out there, that pile still keeps growing.
Right.
So you got to be taking out at least as much as coming in, and that's not happening.
So that's probably going to stop soon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Could you talk more? You said we're trying to get our own tire processing permit.
So we have 2 C&D shredders at the landfill. We are shredding tires when we can now and landfilling them. One of the selling points for that second shredder was to be able to shred those tires and sell those chips. I have people that want to buy them, but we have to have a C&D processing permit to be able to sell the chips. I don't have to have it to shred tires and landfill them, but I have to have it to be able to sell those chips in the state of South Carolina.
Okay.
But, the way permitting happens with DES right now, I've got a landfill expansion permit that's been down there for 2 years boiling. It's in review right now. We're in the last, we're about to cross the finish line. So, blessing. But until that one finishes up and they sign off on that, they will not even look at that second permit, which is the tire processing. So this one has to be complete before they'll move into the next one and grant that one. That was a simple process compared to an expansion permit, but it's just getting through these hurdles with the first one to get to that second one. So we expect to see the expansion permit back in the next few months. Once that's done, the tire processing permit is sitting there ready to go. It goes straight into the queue, and we'll have to go through a little wait process for them to pull it up. But as soon as they get that one, they're telling me that's usually a 2 or 3 week process to get that permit once it's on their desk.
And we already have the equipment we need, we're
Yes,
just waiting
ma'am.
on paperwork.
I'm just
And
waiting.
then we start, so this loss we're taking on tires right now, you think for 2025 will go away because we'll start selling tire chips?
It's gonna get very low the first year. The second year it should go away altogether. That's what we're hoping.
Super.
So the first year it's gonna reduce because most of our efforts are gonna be spent on getting the new expanded landfill opened up and getting everything in its place in a new position, because we've got to get the operation set up in a new way, because it hasn't been done in Pickens County for a while. We haven't landfilled in a long time in Pickens County, true landfill. And we're doing it right this time. So there's a new system that everybody's got to learn how to do. And once that's all in place, we're going to set up an area within that landfill footprint that will be for tire processing, and it'll just be wide open. And the tire chips we'll be able to use within the facility as well as in other places, hopefully within our operations throughout the county in places. But we'll also be able to sell those. And at that time, I'll have to come back and talk with you all about setting a price for what we will sell those chips for.
Does anybody have any other questions about the recycling? You do?
Still going, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Plastics, right now, the county takes number 1 and number 2, but only bottles with the threads on top, right?
Bottles and jugs, yes, ma'am.
But you have to take the cap off.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have to take the rings off?
We prefer that, yes, ma'am.
I say because, like, in my district, people are taking stuff to either the university, the city, or the county, and they all have different rules on whether or not this ring has to be on there.
We've talked with the city and with the university about that, and we're trying to find a way to get consistency. So my recycling attendants at the station, we have people that come in little baskets outside the bin, and they literally pull those.
I've seen them doing that.
Yeah, they do that for us.
Okay.
Naturally, Clemson City doesn't really have the manpower to be able to do that,
Right.
and I'm not sure about the university. That's a question I've got to ask Dave Vanderveer and see where he's at with it. But we're trying to all get consistent. They bring their plastics to us.
Okay, so it's going to the same place.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So we're okay as long as the caps are off. The vendor likes all of that off the top because it's 2 different types of plastic.
But the messaging of only bottles and jugs with threads on top is not going through to all the places because, I mean, I'm still seeing the, containers your berries come in, and there's 1s and 2s.
Well,
If you flip them over, they meet the 1s and 2 requirement, but they're not this bottles and jugs with threads. So should the message consistently be only bottles and jugs, threads, no caps?
That's what we try to put out there. Steve and I both have been interviewed. We put out stuff on Facebook about it as well. Jamie Burns has put out information about it. And the answer to why is a little frustrating. 1s and 2s is a thing. It's a real thing. It's what they're made out of.
Right.
So 1s and 2s is a real thing. But it's kind of like going to the DMV is the way I explain it. If you go to the DMV and you've got all your paperwork, and you've got all your paperwork, when you hand it to the clerk at the DMV, it doesn't matter if it's all your paperwork. It matters if the DMV clerk thinks it's all your paperwork, right? Or you got to go back to the back of the line. It's the same thing with recyclables. The guy that gets off the truck that comes and buys those recyclables, they're looking for threads on top because that's the easy decision to make. If they see a bunch of things that aren't threads on top, they ain't going to bring it. They ain't going to take it from you.
They just won't buy it.
They just won't buy it.
So you increase the likelihood of it actually being recycled.
That's
Which
right.
is
correct.
the only thing
That's
you put in
correct.
it.
So more than, on plastics, more than 20% of the bale that's contaminated, that would be considered contamination. That bale is rejected.
I saw some great messaging, you had it, and then it came out, the concept of aspirational recycling, that we have to really
Oh, yeah.
stop that with people.
Wish cycling.
The wish cycling, I like that. I will say the Pickens County website is wrong right now. It says that we're still accepting glass. And I do think, like, when you're just Googling recycling and stuff, it is still a little complex. So I would like to request a staff audit
Okay.
of anytime you've got Pickens County and recycling together, that all of this has been updated fully. And maybe clarifying exactly, not just bottles and jugs, but it's like, because after bottles and jugs, it then says, please rinse your containers. So to me, if I hear container, I'm going back to thinking it's the thing I bought strawberries in.
Thank you.
So just, it's so hard. This is one of the number one questions I get from everybody, is just figuring out, because they want to recycle so bad.
Recycling is really tough, and we do have a lot of people in Pickens County that are trying their best to do the right thing.
Yeah.
But the market has made it so convoluted and so hard to weave through.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to get the messaging out and keep it right.
Right, I know.
But we've tried, there are some other plastics we probably could sell at not at any kind of profit like what we're getting now. But the problem is they'll take it for 3 or 4 months, and then they won't take it for 6 months. So what we've tried to do is just streamline it to the plastics that we know they're going to take care of, and we don't have to keep changing things. That's another thing that has been a problem in the past, is the change. If we keep changing things, it just flies apart.
Yeah.
It explodes. So we're trying to minimize all that change and just keep it streamlined and as minimal as possible and as easy to read as possible for the folks when they come in to be able to do what they need to do.
I think I have my last question. Aluminum and versus steel cans, like when I got my canned goods in and when I bought a Coke, those going in the same bins, or those are being separated?
Aluminum goes in the aluminum container, the recycling containers that we showed earlier. Those are the ones with the little doghouse on top of them.
Yeah. Because in front of the aluminum it says no metal
Right there.
cans, which is
That's actually the aluminum bin right there.
Yeah.
Metal cans, tin cans,
aluminum is a metal, right? So I don't like that.
tin cans, metal cans, they go in the metal bin with all other metals.
Oh,
So if you're throwing away a metal chair or
I'm also putting my green beans in there.
put your green bean can in there too.
Okay.
So aluminum is no longer considered a metal?
Well, it's not a metal can the way that sign is.
I don't. I stood still in front of that
I
before.
realized I went to Pickens High School.
You got your PhD. So yeah, it goes to Dr. Holloway's point about signs and revisiting the signage, which I think is a very
Steel
valid point.
cans? They're steel.
But the point there is the
Can't
metal
steal it, no steal
is
it.
worth more than the aluminum.
Yeah. So we want to put
So
the
we
steel
want
in.
to encourage people.
Right, that's
I
correct.
get it.
Now, I will say that Rodney and I both, our agenda over the next couple of weeks is to go through every one of these stations. We're inventorying signs, we're inventorying safety items and things to get all that more streamlined and better appealing for the public. So
In
that
terms
is
of the
on our
public,
agenda.
this is a side note, Mr. Tato, sorry, but we have been talking about what to do with the Keep Pickens County Beautiful Committee, which used to be the Beautification Committee. And pre-COVID, one of their jobs was to do, someone here remembers the name. They went to all 4th grade classes.
Traveling trash.
Traveling
bash.
trash bash.
There you go. If we could, maybe with that committee, through somebody else, go through and teach school children, get a clear, here's what I can recycle at home. Because the kids are very aware of this and they're getting the messaging. The schools are confused. I was at an elementary school where we were just trying to recycle paper, and that was baffling to everybody involved. So I would love to see us have an outreach and schools are an effective way to do that.
On that note, I've actually been talking with the school district over the last several months. Then the hurricane happened, so it kind of backed everything up. So I'm hoping next year to be able to I want to go to every school, every grade in Pickens County. I don't want to just target 4th graders,
Yeah.
3rd graders. I want every child at every school. So we are actually in communication with the school district right now, trying to work out details.
Be cool if the school
On that.
districts recycle too.
Well,
I know that's harsh.
believe it or not, they were actually on some things. Metal was one of the things, so the school district maintenance folks were recycling metal, and we had a container there for them, and they were calling us, we'd go pick it up. We were recycling it. And we picked it up 3 weeks ago, and they told me not to bring the can back, and now I've seen that they have Republic containers that are over there, so I don't know what happened there, but I haven't asked that question yet. But it's no longer a Pickens County container hauling their metals for them.
Okay, so part 3 of this is gonna be, Mr. Roper, you talked about what we're charging the cities to dump and how much cost we're incurring. You said you wanted to review that.
Yeah, some of this information, I think Director Ranks would probably give more color and context to this, but it's out of date. This information dates back, what would you estimate, 20 years?
20 years. This sheet that I gave you guys is out of the budget book for fiscal year 25 for solid waste. And I've highlighted at the bottom the user fee information for it.
You can see it's different cities, different amounts. I've gotten, as I've asked people to go back and look at this historically, some of the cities believe these rates are based on whether or not they collect commercial waste curbside. Others have told me, other city administrators have told me this deal was based on a previous solid waste director figuring out how much they were recycling, trying to figure out a way to incentivize the cities to recycle. So I don't really know a lot of the history of this. I do just look at it and note that it's different for different cities. And I don't know if that reflects anything you see, Director.
I'm kind of along the same background. That's what I've kind of gathered, a bunch of different things from a bunch of different folks. But the one thing that I have gathered from this whole thing is, number one, each municipality is charging their citizens to pick up their trash. They're paying a fee on top of paying us a county tax.
We're not paying a fee.
I'm sorry?
We're not paying a fee. I live in a municipality. I do not pay a fee.
So you don't have,
I pay a tax, just like I pay the county a tax.
Right.
I pay the municipality a tax, not a fee.
Okay.
Want to be very clear, there's a difference between a fee and a tax.
okay. Well, and that's what I'm getting at. And I'm not sure how you want to, I know some places, a couple of the municipalities, so on their I guess water bill is what they would call it,
Water
or
bill.
utility bill or whatever. There is a fee for picking up trash. Some places it may be a tax. But whatever that case is, the residents are paying them to pick it up as well. And that's fine. We're not saying that nobody should be paying anything, or we just want to see it even for everybody, an even amount. And for us, we feel like at minimum, because of what it costs us to handle this and take care of it and tipping fees, at minimum, a prorated rate would be a tipping fee.
So basically, what's happening is we're picking up their household trash is getting dumped to us.
Right.
And then we're driving it over to Greenville.
Right.
Okay, it's not like it's going in our.
Well, it's household waste, it's construction debris, and it's brush.
Okay, so do you have different rates for all 3 of those?
Well, household and construction debris is the same rate. It's $47 a ton that we charge at our landfill. I'm not asking that.
Okay.
All I'm asking for is the tipping fee that we pay to Greenville County to dump that stuff at Greenville County. Now, naturally, once we start landfilling here, the C&D,
So for
I don't
example, when
need
the
a
city
fee
of
for
Pickens
C&D,
truck
it's the
comes in,
MSW fee.
City of Pickens truck comes in to dump household waste. They go over the scales and they pay a fee.
No.
They pay 0?
They pay, if they're on this list, they pay a user fee. If they're not on this list, they don't pay.
They're
So
paying
they're paying 0.
Correct.
easily spend
So you're,
0.
so Zeasley's paying 0, but everybody else is paying something else. So you're
Right.
arguing that's not fair.
Right.
Okay. So now when it comes to brush and C&D, is that different?
No, this user fee is covering MSW, C&D, brush, everything comes in.
Okay,
Correct.
so City of Pickens doesn't pay anything?
By our user fee that we have in our budget book, they don't pay us.
Okay, so but then we're paying to run some of that to Greenville?
All of it goes to Greenville.
Okay.
But also,
Except for
Easley's not,
brush.
Easley's not paying anything.
But see, there's still a cost for
Functions
brush
being
and C&D, even if we're landfilling C&D and we're landfilling brush, it still costs us money. Because
Right.
we got grinders that
Gotcha.
we're running, we've got
So
manpower.
what are you recommending we do?
The only thing that we're asking is in my opinion, the only thing that I'm requesting is that it, number one, be even across the board, and based off of the tonnage that they bring in landfill, if I'm paying $20 a ton to Twin Chimneys, they pay $20 a ton for Twin Chimneys.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question
Sure,
for
sure.
clarity
Yeah.
here? So let's say that 0 municipalities pick up trash.
Mhm.
And every resident of Pickens County that pays Pickens County taxes that live in the municipalities now decides to start going to all of the recycle centers and drop their bags of trash off.
Right.
Whose responsibility is it? Who's going to pay for that trash to go to Greenville?
I understand.
Nope. I don't want you to understand. I want an
It
answer.
would be us.
Okay, it would be you.
Right.
Right, because we're all county residents.
Yeah.
So by me paying a municipality my taxes, and one of the many services they offer is to pick up my trash for me, right?
Mhm.
They bring it to you, which you would get if they didn't bring it to you, because I would bring it to you.
Right.
And you take that trash to Twin Chimneys for me,
Yeah.
right? And I'm paying the city's tax, and I'm paying the county's tax.
Mhm.
We all agree, I still pay the county's tax, right?
Correct.
Okay, I want to be very clear about that because I think that gets lost a lot with a lot of folks. What I personally think, and I don't, this monthly fee crap makes 0 sense to me.
Right.
None.
Yeah.
Either charge a whatever monthly fee that seems fair and whatever, or don't. I can see that their
Right.
truck coming across your scales or doing whatever is going to put a little wear and tear on the road. I get that 100%. That I get it, but it should be fair and equal across the board
And that's all I'm asking.
on the fee. But now, charging the tipping fee that you're paying makes it feel like I'm actually being triple taxed now. Because I'm paying a city tax. I'm already paying you to dispose of it. Now you're asking me, because the city's gonna pass that tax off to me. So
Right.
now I'm gonna pay the tipping fee too. So I've actually paid the tipping fee twice and then to transport it. I don't see how that's right or fair.
And I understand, and again, this is just right now, this is the only option that I have to get it fair across the board. I'm open to any suggestions on it. It was just, to me, when you have one that's paying almost $5,000 a month,
Don't
and somebody
disagree.
else paying none,
Don't disagree.
there's not a balance there.
I guess the point is.
I don't know what the numbers
The
should be.
point he's making
I'm
is
just-
that I live in, let's say I live in the city and I'm paying county taxes. There should be some kind of credit that I get, meaning I shouldn't charge twice. I get it, but when you look at, let's say, the city of Pickens, I'll pick the city of Pickens, to my district. The cost to handle their trash is $104,000. We get nothing. The county government gets nothing. That's not fair. There needs to be some, maybe it's half, maybe it's a quarter, because the rest of it gets covered by the property taxes that they're paying to the county, let's say. I get that. They shouldn't pay all of it,
No, no.
but they should pay something. It should be equal. And believe me, I'm in the same boat as you, Councilman Bowers. My city's paying nothing. I think they should pay something.
Right.
Now, should they pay 100%? No, because they're paying property taxes to the county.
But by the same token, if the city stops picking it up, I'm just going to go to that recycle center, I'm going to throw it in a container, and the county is still on the hook to take care of it.
I agree
Well, then
with
we'll
that
create another
100%.
system where.
And it's something to
They
it
have.
warrants a
You think
discussion.
they should not pay?
Well,
Oh,
we're
absolutely,
operating at a
because-
loss for all of them.
Because I don't want to have to pay more city taxes, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Is the residents of the municipality are going to pay whatever you go up. So absolutely, I don't think we should have to pay any more. But truthfully, if you get down to the brass tacks of it, that trash is going somewhere. Whether the city of Easley takes it to the landfill, or whether I take it to the landfill or recycling center, whatever transfer center, it's still going to the same place, and I'm still paying my county tax. That's
Yeah,
the point I'm making.
But
I don't
the question is,
disagree at all.
how much is your county tax paying for that versus how much, it's always a sort of a fixed versus variable. When you use EMS, you pay them a bill, you get a bill, because there's a variable cost there. Now, there should be a fixed cost and a variable. I'm not saying the city residents should pay 100% of it, but they should pay something.
There is a difference, Mr. Chairman, and I understand what you're saying. You're just saying there should be some logic to it.
Right.
And I get that. There is a difference between handling one of these, one of these, which we compact and handle it the way we can, versus having them deliver it on a truck, dump it in a transfer station, move it into an open top, truck the open top all the way over there. So there is a different on the margin,
That's
a
right.
cost there that's different because the cities bring it in the quantity and the nature that they bring it in. We've set the recycling centers up for guys throwing bags in a big hole. The cities are bringing it to us literally on giant trucks, and we don't even show the thing, you know, because you've been out there.
Yeah.
We don't even show the thing we have to have that we wouldn't have to have if it wasn't for the cities bringing it to us the way they bring it. So there is a number out there, I think, and we don't want to formally request. I think I was asked this question. I said we're not formally requesting any of that tonight. We just want to make sure all the council understands that in case in the staff budget we come out with a number that has some logic to it.
We are not the only county in South Carolina that has municipalities that take trash to the county landfill. How do other counties do this?
So, it's different in every county. I'm
Really?
not sure how they do it, yes. As a matter of fact, there's several counties around, if you go to a recycling center, you're gonna pay $2 a bag to put your trash bag in a compactor or recycle center.
To that point, and not to get off point, if we go to Beaufort County, imagine what it would be like in Pickens County. If we had, Beaufort's a little bit bigger than us, but not much. You have to have a barcode on your car to get the gate open to get into recycling center.
Yeah, so every
And they know
county,
who's going in.
I kind of like it.
Yeah.
it's, well, that's one of those things that's kind of on the list. But they're different in every county, and there's no set way. And like I say, that $20 a ton is our tipping fee we've had at Greenville County, and that's just a number that, to start the conversation.
I think there's a real number.
But
There is somewhere, I just don't know what it is, but to me, seeing, half of the municipalities paying a fee and then others not paying a fee, it's just,
I don't
It
think
didn't
the
sit
numbers,
right.
I don't think the number's 100%, nor do I think it's zero.
But
It's somewhere in between.
But this is interesting. If government is a service and not a profit maker, the service is trash being taken away, right? We've been operating at a loss. Even Clemson paying $5,000 a month, we still lose
oh,
money
yes.
taking. So we've already decided as a county that this is a loss for us, that it is something that we pay for. It is one of the county services you get. So trying to be like, what should we charge you so our loss feels less is a little weird.
Yeah,
When it's already part of our tax. We've already agreed that we pay a tax that covers landfill, and then we figure out what our threshold is for how much loss we're willing to take for that. And if that loss gets too much, then you increase your county taxes. Like that's, as opposed to your point of making cities double charge residents.
There is another dynamic to this, and I say this with some great hesitancy because I'll leave the city name not disclosed unless you make me answer. But the cities make different decisions than we would make. Like they make different decisions on how they're going to bring the waste, on when they're going to bring the waste, and what quantities they're going to bring the waste. And we are not set up just to service that. We're set up for the big wide expanse of the county. And that picture on the bottom is an example of that. We arranged for an unnamed city. Probably figured out. We arranged for an unnamed city to use our contract that we've negotiated with SCDOT for them to do our debris removal. Well, that process has been long and arduous and annoying to the public. It's been annoying to all of the public. One of the cities decided, because they're in charge of their city, they get to make this call, that they were going to go pick up the brush themselves, and they were going to stockpile it. And then they were going to start yelling at us that we weren't going to take their brush. You all know the problems we have with taking brush, with the grinders and everything else. So you have to recognize that what they've done there is take something that would be 100% FEMA reimbursable expense. They just needed to put up with one variable, and that is time. But instead, yeah, exactly. But instead, they stockpiled, and then they started yelling at us, and they wanted the general fund to pay for taking care of their brush. And it's difficult to tell them no because of these arguments y'all are making. It's difficult, but that's a specific example. That's a mountain of brush in one of our cities that we are going to have to handle, or they're going to have to handle at a general fund expense. I hope they can get FEMA reimbursed for that. But you have to realize that when these cities make these decisions, they're not making their decisions designed for Steve.
Yeah.
They're making it designed for them. And there's a cost there. We just got to sharpen our pencils and figure it out.
So what do you want to do? Do you want to just leave it the way it is? Do you want to ask for a recommendation from the administration? What do you want to do?
Mr. Chairman, I think it'd be appropriate during budget conversations to nail that down and get a good figure. I mean, we're rolling into that anyway, so I think that'd be a fit time to have those conversations.
Okay,
I was gonna say with municipalities, can we create a policy that directs them that this is how you have to handle brush? Just as that example.
How do you enforce it?
How do you?
You just don't accept it.
Yeah,
Right.
And that's kind of what we've limited specific municipalities now, is how much they can bring a week, just because we can't handle it.
I was gonna say, they're already doing that.
Yeah.
So are you
Yeah.
saying they took it upon themselves to go collect that?
They had to.
We're going to have
because-
to pay for it?
Right, well, if they bring it to us, we will have to pay for disposing it. I have talked to them, their city administrator's been, frank about this, we've had good discussions. And he's making other arrangements, because we can only handle, what we've told him is 5 loads a day, because we can't handle that volume. We have a permit capacity at our landfill, the mountain can only get so high.
Yeah.
So, we have to put limitations on, but it's frustrating. It's frustrating for the elected officials now, because they're getting the phone calls. So I feel for them, but you have to recognize what happened there.
So you see that pile right there, there's that much sitting on Mossy Smith Road still today?
Still today, yeah.
That's just one of their policies.
I'm just telling you, on a 1/10 of a mile section of Mossy Smith Road, there's every bit of that.
Yeah.
Except it's that big around, it's gonna take.
It's soft and.
Yeah.
So
It looks like a
I
lot
had
of.
to
mentioned
set
that.
that up to them, and
Yeah, we beat the drum on the contract.
I will call them again tomorrow about that. to make-
I'm just
I
saying,
know it's on their
it's still a
list.
problem, and,
Right.
and yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those, that's a whole nother animal that I'm worried about.
So-
Mr. Chairman, do we still have our ad hoc, solid waste committee?
Not really.
Did we dissolve it?
No, we never dissolved it. I think just something that would go on. But I would like to
Two out of
do,
the 3 of us are here. I'm just wondering if that committee should meet with staff to come up with recommendations to submit as part of the budget process. Or, I mean, I don't feel like I have the knowledge for this. I think it needs to come almost entirely from staff.
what I would do, this is what I would suggest. Let the administration come up with a recommendation. And if it's important to you, just call them.
Yeah.
Tell them what you think. Like, I can tell you, in the city of, Norris, it's probably not a big issue. But in the city of Clemson, it's gonna be a big issue. So I would just talk to them, just work on a recommendation for us.
We will.
So let me just, in summary, I think you got 3 priorities I heard. And we didn't talk about one of them, but I know it's one. The grinder is an issue. Willow Springs, and then blue bins, are those 3 things that you're most concerned about tonight? And then, of course, the city fees.
I think he would say not blue bins, but readdressing some of the centers that don't work efficiently.
That's the
So you're
bigger-
saying Willow Springs would be, that's what you're saying? I mean, what would you, I'm not putting words in your mouth. Tell me what your 3 priorities are.
I think you're on it. I think the recycling centers, Willow Springs being the first one, I think should be a priority, top 3. The second is the brush grinding, which really right now is top of the list. The brush grinder, we've got it set to be on the replacement for this year. And I would like to be able to keep the old one and not trade it in or sell it off on gov deals, since we have made repairs in the last 2 weeks and got it working somewhat.
What's your 3rd priority?
And the third priority,
Oh, that's the city fees, because we're gonna work on that.
Well, that doesn't bother me too much. It's just unfair.
yeah, I think city fees probably would be top of the list on that too. So those 3 things right now for priority.
Okay, so the grinder's in the capital plan. How do we feel about speeding that up and voting on that next month?
Well, with these 3 things, are you planning to come to us with your budget, like as part of this year's budget? We'll have the budget for reconfiguring Willow Springs and doing
No,
the
ma'am.
grinder.
So that will probably be capital improvements or
Okay.
CIP for the next fiscal year.
Okay.
Because we've got some pre-planning that we've got to do. We've got to look at tax maps. We've got to look at plats, make sure that the ground there is going to be conducive for what we're asking
Okay.
to do, and just do a lot of pre-planning to make sure that when we come to you, we have an accurate estimate of what it's going to take to do that work. I don't want to come in with halfway numbers and end up short or over. I wanna make sure that we're really close with what we have.
As far as the grinder, directly to that, our intention is to have that in the staff proposed budget for part of the capital plan so that we can be ready July 1. For that.
So you don't need it
He's asking,
immediately?
we need to.
Well, I mean, we need it.
4 months
You
ago.
see the math.
Are we in a position to do that in this fiscal year?
Well, we could pay cash for it.
So,
Yeah, we got money in the bank.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask, if we ordered it today, how long before it would be here?
I could get you an answer on that first thing in the morning, but as of last week, if I had ordered it last Tuesday, I could have had it by Thursday.
Oh,
And what was the cost of that?
1.2 million.
1.3.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we move forward with that purchase tonight and fund it out of the general fund.
I'll second that.
question, did you say that there was money that was gonna help this? Because you said, oh, I guess we could do it from the general fund. What was the other plan if it wasn't general fund?
We could lease to own, we could finance it, I'm not being glib.
Oh, you just meant like,
I just mean, we have money, we could do it.
okay, but there wasn't some other funding mechanism that was possible. Okay, thank you.
So it's either spend the money today or spend the money in a couple months.
Got it, and we have a rush issue.
It's a legitimate.
Now, that's not even, our pile's bigger than that.
Right.
Our pile is that one small, really small.
Mr. Lang, how do you feel about that?
I think it would be, I think Chair, Councilor Ballard is right. We're gonna spend the money no matter what. When we spend it, I think is irrelevant. We have the money and it's not gonna put the county in a bind. Let's go ahead and pay it. Let's buy it. Get it here.
It'll have great effect.
Any other comments on that, questions?
I do have one question. If it is tied specifically, the need for this grinder to Helene, like I know we talked about it before, but we really need it now, is there any federal assistance that's available when you are doing a county response to a declared disaster?
We could ask that question. My suspicion is that the answer to that is going to be no, because we were grinding before and we were grinding after. The machine was worn out before. So I don't know, but we would certainly ask, because we would always want to, where we could.
Did we get a cash discount?
Actually,
That's a loaded question.
We are getting a pretty good discount on this machine already at this price.
Okay, so the price of it is $1,159,700. Taxes $83,008. The total is $1,268,848.
What number is that?
That's number 6.
Number 6.
Thank you.
Now, my take on the Willow Springs is this.
We're still under motion.
All right. But yes. Yeah, any other questions? No? If those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously, 6-0. Okay.
See you Thursday.
Yeah.
I'll see what I can do.
Call them now.
Still just 5 loads a day.
My only point on Willow Springs is we've got EMS stations, we've got Carolina Investors, we've got a roof we got to do here. Then we're going to start to get into priorities. Is it going to be the operations management building, maintenance building, or is it vehicle maintenance building, or something like this? I mean, we've got plenty of things we got to do.
Mr. Chairman, I think you're right. And I think, Director Raines is working on that. I'll tell you that Director Robinson, he's been over that and a couple other departments here for about 6 weeks. And he's asked that we look at all of these stations, kind of top-down review, he asked me the other day. So we'll be working on that to refine what
Next
we're
year
looking
makes
at.
sense.
Yeah,
That's all I'm saying.
thank you, sir.
And that'll be fine, because it's gonna take time to design and things like, especially we're gonna do a new station. It'll take time to do that.
Yeah, it's on our radar now. That's good.
And
That's progress.
that was part of why we didn't want to push to try to get it in this year too, is we know there's a lot of priorities already out there. And also we want to vet and make sure that we have a total package when we come to you. We don't want to just have half-cop numbers.
Okay, so the bottom line is we're gonna purchase the grinder, and we're gonna get a recommendation on city fees for. All right.
Mr. Chairman, Director Raines tells me it will not, or as he put it, we will fight, he and I will fight It will not look like that.
There will never be a tub grinder at Pickens County as long as I'm here.
Tub grinder.
That is the most dangerous grinder on the face of the planet.
Okay, thank you very much.
How are the two pieces of equipment we purchased last year?
I'm sorry?
The two pieces of equipment we bought last year, how's that?
Oh, they're amazing.
Good.
They're amazing. Yeah, we used it today to move that burnt, excavator, the dozer. It struggled a little bit, but it got it done.
Thank you.
You are. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
All right, next item up is gonna be the last item of the evening.
Sure.
That's gonna be recreational rules. The goal here is, I think, to create a draft of guidelines to be used when allocating recreational funding. If we can find some common ground, I think the clerk will take that, which we agree on tonight, and create a draft for us, hopefully at the March meeting. This was a request of Councilor Wallace and Linville, so Mr. Wallace, you're up. Give us your thoughts on recreational rule and guidelines.
I was honestly surprised to find out there were no rules.
Yep.
Of any kind. I think we need to keep it as a recreation funding mechanism. The only bump I've seen since I've been on council, and I was told of this before I got on council, I think it needs to be in there not to use this money to hire somebody. 'Cause it's
No
not
salaries.
fair. Yeah. I had an issue with one of the towns that was wanting to hire a position, and I said, no, don't do that. I think, I don't know. I don't have a set of rules I'm wanting to put on it, other than that one specific thing. I think we've got a pretty good guideline, but that's what it is, it's just a guideline
Where'd you find a pretty good guideline?
in the email.
No,
I didn't turn it on.
I've been reading everything and I can't. It may be, Megan sent us the
last email Megan sent us.
the form you fill out to apply for funds. And what's fascinating about that is I don't know how that form got created or who created it to ask those questions. So I'm guessing how many residents will benefit, how does it provide novel recreational opportunities? How does it reach residents who would not otherwise have recreation opportunities?
I think that was created by former versions of the committee, just trying to figure out how to reflect what council was saying at the time.
So, Mr. Chairman, those were actual legitimate questions that I have heard asked when folks have asked for rec funding. So I feel like that form was actually created as a more formal, when the committee was put into place, but it was the same types of questions with ATAX and others. There were no good, clear questions being asked. In fact, 8 years ago, it was, yeah, no worries, we'll get you a lawnmower. And that was the way it went down, or, yeah, no worries, we'll put a light in building XYZ for you. And that wasn't good either. So the form was created based off questions that came from council, because I can think of a council member in particular that asked that question to absolutely everything.
So even though it wasn't an official ordinance, there's no official guidelines, through conversations, the committee that reviews these came up with these questions to try to guide applicants.
I think there is an ordinance.
Yeah, it's a specific ordinance.
All the ordinance says is to provide recreational opportunities.
But then it lists questions too, doesn't it?
Nope. Not that I'm
Oh,
sorry,
I'm sorry,
not
it
that I would
doesn't
say.
have copy requirements. It says name and address of organization, tax identification number, copy of bylaws. Yeah, I saw that, but you're right, there's really no rules.
It doesn't say in this whole thing, it just says we're gonna create a recreation funding advisory board. And it says how the board will be run, and the only time it ever refers, funding request from recreational organizers within the county.
So what do you suggest?
That is the
rules
only
should be?
definition of this.
What do you suggest?
Well, what I think is cool is that we have the opportunity to figure out what we want to do with this fund. I suspect, I asked for the minutes of the meeting that approved this, and then we weren't able to find them. this conversation first came along. First of all, I'm pro-recreation. I'm not trying to say I'm not, but it's interesting because different parts of the county have different access to recreation. So I suspect this came out of, I'm going to use Dacusville as an example, because Dacusville doesn't have a city parks and rec program, right? They are not a formalized city. The only funding that Dacusville, Mr. Wilson always gave all of his funding to the Dacusville Community Center because that's what provided their recreation opportunities. If the county didn't give Dacusville money for recreation, they would be limited in offering it. Whereas City of Clemson, for example, has an extensive parks and rec program partnering with Central and able to offer a large variety of recreational opportunities to people in the city. So my district doesn't need to rely on the county for recreation funds. However, so I think it's interesting that this is the only fund that the county has at all to give directly to organizations to just make life a little better in Pickens County. Like, I have had, since I've been in this office for 2 years, several nonprofits come to me and say, oh my God, we really need, does the county have any money? We are starting up this kind of shelter. We are starting up this kind of organization. We have, like I got voted down the other day, a playground that's going to threaten our ability to offer childcare at one of only 2 ABC quality centers in the county. And we have no way to give money to any of those people because a council a while ago decided that recreation was the only thing the county would fund. I am not saying that recreation is bad, and especially it's a value in Pickens County that we provide opportunities for people to get outside and be healthy and socialize and do arts and civics. It's wonderful. But it's interesting to me that that is the only thing that a council decided the government money could help with. My proposal is that we change this and call it a quality of life fund. And for somebody, for a district member, may find that recreation is the best way to improve the quality of life in their district. Or I don't want to say what you're going to vote for, Dale, but it would be maybe you decide the quality of life of Dacusville is best improved by having a thriving community center. That's what you would like to use your allocation for. And I respect that because I don't know how the Dacusville, I'm not familiar. I haven't used the programs of the Dacusville Community Center, but that's great. Whereas in my district, where we have so many recreation opportunities, and we have some great ones that have been helped by the county. I don't want to discount some of the swimming lessons and other activities that have been funded by the county, but I would like the flexibility to be like, you know what, we could really use council funds for the more than 50 nonprofits that serve the Clemson area. I've got that number because I was on the board of the Community Foundation of Greater Clemson. There are a lot of people doing a lot of work to make life better for people in Clemson that could really benefit from some county funds. Now, I realize that leaving that super open-ended sets you up to get 1 million requests from people who would like government funds. That is tricky. So we can put some guidelines in it. I completely agree, no salaries. We could even decide no capital projects, it's only programming, or only capital projects and no programming. We could make a decision like that. But I think it goes back to how it was originally set up. I know you were making fun of it because it didn't have enough light and transparency, but this idea that a council member knew what programs or activities or things going on in their district could use a little government help that year. And I prefer this to not be exactly defined on recreation, classic terms of recreation, because we also start discovering that. I got made fun of because we funded arts classes in Clemson, and people were like, how can you do arts classes? Why are you spending your money on arts classes when other people, you know, it's the only time that they can ever go swimming? You know, it's starting to be like, how are we valuing recreation opportunities? And that got tricky too. So my proposal is that we call this a quality of life fund. We leave it more at the discretion of council members. We continue to have a rec board that considers these and talks about it, but gives some flexibility to recognize the different districts have different needs.
Any other comments? Well, I remember the history too. The history was you called your county councilman and you said, I needed this. He called the administration and said, write a check. Yeah. And then Councilman Bowers got elected and then some others, and they added a committee, they added some framework, they added, most importantly, transparency.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, that was the key thing. But you need some specific rules. I agree with that. And the 6 rules, I have 7 different rules that I'll propose. What I did is I went back and looked at who we've given money to the last 5 years. and just empirically tried to back out the rules that we've been using. And so first it has a recreation activity or a purpose that gets a person out and about. That's number one.
You have to be out and about.
Out and about.
You can't play bingo.
Well, I mean, the person leaves their house, goes, plays bingo at the senior center. For them, that's recreation, that's appropriate. So it's age-based. Second thing is it's a nonprofit or a government. It's not a for-profit company. There had been a debate about that at some point, but I would limit it to nonprofit or government. General public use would be my third rule. The fourth would be an event, a capital project, or something similar, not salaries or some kind of operational daily cost like a utility bill. Surely not political groups, you know, if they had some recreational function. When you present your application, you need a written estimate of the event of the project. You can't just say it's $8,000. Pretty much that's what they do. They will turn back an application if it doesn't have an estimate. The final thing is proof that they properly used last year's funds by showing pictures and receipts. Like I said, I went back and looked at years and rec scoreboard, disc golf course, construction of a walking trail, swimming classes, equipment for the kitchen at the senior center, picnic area at Mile Creek Park. All those things fit within those rules. The one exception I saw that wouldn't have worked, that was approved in 2018, was the City of Liberty rec money for a light bill. See, that would fall outside my rules.
Money for what?
A light bill.
Oh.
I guess it was like a utility bill.
Yeah.
The issue I have with the quality of life is that every nonprofit is going to be able to argue what they're doing is a quality of life issue. The Republican Party can come forward and say that's a quality of life issue when you participate in a democracy. And $50,000 per district is not going to satisfy them. There's then going to be a call to raise the amount. And this is not a program, in my opinion, that should subsidize all the nonprofits in the area, but only give like a selective boost here and there. So, and then second thing is the ordinance, the way it's written, would have to have a total rewrite because the way it's written, it talks about recreational, and that would just take forever. If we just added these rules to it, it would just slip right into the ordinance.
The ordinance only says recreation like twice.
Well, it's got to get a rewrite then, at least in those two places. So, those are my arguments. That's my arguments there. Just to take what the previous council started with, which is the ordinance. Like I said, they added transparency, they added structure, they added the committee. Just take it a step further and make the rules a little bit more specific with those rules there, or if anyone else can add something or take away. Any thoughts? Anyone have any thoughts on that?
Well, primarily in my district, 6 Mile, I got Central and 6 Mile, and a little bit of Clemson.
Yeah.
So 6 Mile small, they have a huge rec program. They depend on that money. Central has a great rec program. They need some of the money too, but they're in a little better position than 6 Mile as far as funds available. So for my district, it's probably gonna have to stay with them because that's my needs in my district. I know we purchased several things for Ponderosa Park with that money.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with most of your ideas. Definitely number 2, that should be nonprofit or government. I think that's already in there. Number 4, no salaries, no utilities, instead of an event or capital. That works for me. No political groups, yes. Written estimate, yes. Proof of proper use, yes. So I guess my questions are out and about, which I find hard to define in an ordinance. Especially when you think of like COVID, where the Pickens County libraries were sending home art kits for people to do and stuff like that. Like they were increasing recreation or like a trail. I don't know. Out and about, this would be tricky. And then general public use. A lot of the stuff we fund is only for certain ages. Like if you're funding children's swim lessons, that is not for general public use.
I would say it is. It's not for a class.
But then we do fund
that
classes.
is in a private school that's getting swimming lessons. That's what I'm.
Funded Meals on Wheels, which has an age limit on who can access it, or need. We funded.
If they're serving the general public, though, they're not serving like a class that signs, like a limited class that signs up.
Well, we do limited classes that signed up. We funded art center programs at Clemson. We have funded like the lights. I mean, not everyone's kid plays Little League football. I mean, like, general public use to me is a little tricky because there are specialized groups that are using a lot of these funds.
I was trying to define recreational activity. We don't have to, we can just call it recreational activity. Councilman Bowers, what's your thoughts on this? You've done this a million times.
Yeah, I think that when you get down into the weeds, I like all 6 of those. I think when you get down to the weeds of general public use, I hear the argument you're making, but by the same token, every argument you made, every second grader that is involved in a Pickens County school has the opportunity to go to these swim lessons, whatever. Now, if I choose to put my kid in a non-Pickens County school, so be it. But if they were, whatever. If the Holly Springs Center wants to offer a pottery class, as long as it's open to the public, it's open to the public. If it's not open to the public, if it's and I'll use Podunk Hollow Baptist Church senior group is going to the Holly Springs Center to do a pottery class, and that's what the money's paying for, I don't agree with that. But if the Holly Springs Center has a class open to the public, so be it. Kind of like I was with if they would just open that playground in Clemson, like I said, one weekend a month, it's open to the public. Absolutely, pay for the playground, because then it's open for general public use. And so I think that if you want to get into the weeds about arguing what general public use is, we could be here all night doing that, but the 6 rules make sense. And I don't disagree at all when it comes to your district, particular Councilman Lawless. You're in a very unique position. Councilman Whitehurst, who sat here before you, made it point blank clear that that's where his money had to go, because if it weren't for that money, Ponderosa Park wouldn't have lights, it wouldn't have wiring. Same thing, Mr. Holloway, what you did, but we all know that the recreational activities, and that started long before Dr. Wilson and Carl Hudson, and that's just the way it is. So I do think the 6 rules are clean rules. I hear what you're wanting to do, Ms. Linville, but I think 50,000 is not enough to go very far, and that's where I'm worried about getting pigeonholed even worse.
Well, I will say one tricky thing. My predecessor regularly did not spend his 50 grand, and I think part of that is because he didn't have enough applications to spend it. I've been working real hard to try to get lots of people to apply for these funds. But it's worth noting on section 2819, it says if you don't spend your funds, it has to go back into the general fund. And then it says, unless you have submitted a written capital improvement plan. So we actually have not been following our own ordinance for years, because mine's been accumulating and I'm up over 150 grand in unspent funds. So we either need to, but to me that presents an inequity, right? Because my citizens, my district is paying the same county taxes, and if you didn't have enough people apply for that full 50 grand and I have to turn that back in, then they paid money that's going to other districts, and that feels inequitable. And anytime that if we leave this in, anytime you don't get a full 50K of requests, then you're turning it back in. So I would actually, as part of this rewrite, would like to go back to section 2819 and not require that you have to send it back to the general fund, that you can keep it, especially because, for example, I know that the city of Clemson is going to come to me with some big plans to fix 12 Mile Park. And if they're coming to me for 12 Mile, that's going to be expensive stuff. So if I knew that was coming, it'd be nice to have more than 50 grand if I didn't spend it 1 year.
So Mr. Chairman, part of 2819 says it could be carried forward. The board recommends. So, Mr. Chairman, and to the point of that carryover, we were purposeful in that verbiage to not be super specific, because 12 Mile Park, Clemson's going to come to you for something for 12 Mile Park. That was enough reason to carry that over. The thought behind not intentionally carrying over, is there were council members in the past that would just bank, and then wipe it all out. And that was when there was no transparency, which was even scarier.
Yeah.
When you had $150,000 and you could just start writing checks because there was no transparency. And so we were trying to avoid that appearance. Now, I will also say this, and this was a conversation I had with my municipality a couple years back, and that was another use for the funds, or thought behind the funds was, let's say the city of Easley has a wonderful recreation program, but they charged an in-city fee and they charged an out-of-city fee.
which a lot of recreation departments do. Offering scholarships for out-of-city residents, so the kids that lived on the borders, that didn't really live in any municipality, they lived in the unincorporated areas of our county, offering scholarships. Now, when I made that suggestion, and we actually were looking at going down that path, the city just says, you know what, we'll just take the out-of-city fee out of this, and everybody just pays the in-city fee, we'll just have one fee and be done with it. But that's an opportunity for districts like yours that have a robust program. The other thing is, I've done parks that the city didn't have in their budget to do. We've done pickleball courts, we've done walking trails, we've done all kinds of things because the city couldn't get it in their overall plan, but that 50,000 or 25 here and 25 the next year, and that's the way we've just thought outside the box and using it.
Yeah, like what I've done is gone into the city of Pickens, I'm hearing from people about a park that they want to see something new in that park.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even on the radar of the city. So what I've done is I approached the city and said, how about this idea? Would you pay for half? And I think I can get half from that. So you can drive the policy that way. That's what I would suggest you do. That sometimes helps, rather than waiting for a group to come to you.
And Mr. Feimster never did that. Not knocking Mr. Feimster, but he never did that.
You guys, Councilor Holloway and Lane?
I think for clarification and simplifications, keep the rec fund as the rec fund and maybe explore creating another entity down the road somewhere. Because that appears to be even though similar in some areas, this is another whole genre. So.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion for this to add to the draft. Okay, and the clerk will work on the draft. We're gonna need 3 readings for this problem, right?
It's a change of an ordinance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna make it that you will create a first reading at some point that says the following, or similar to the following. Recreational activity, I'm not gonna define it. Just don't go there. Non-profit or a government, not for a for-profit company. So those are excluded. General public use, an event, capital project, or something similar. Not salaries or daily operational expenses like utilities, and surely not political groups are excluded. You need written estimates of the event of the project. And proof of, if you've used the funds in the past, proof that you used them properly by showing pictures and receipts. However you feel that should be written. Okay. Now that's my motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on that?
I'm trying to figure out how to word it. I'd like to add an amendment to change the end of this section 2819. I hear exactly what you're saying, but what I'm comfortable with. Says the board may also recommend carrying forward into the board, that's the advisory board, not the council. Carrying forward any district's undistributed funds, providing the board make recommended in writing detailing the specific proposed purchase for carrying over those funds. We have not been seeing that. We've been carrying it over, but there's no I'm saving this up for something, or I plan to do it. I'm uncomfortable with that because I don't want to put in writing, I'm not spending 20 grand because I think there's going to be a 12-mile project. And 2 years later, the 12-mile project doesn't happen, but something else comes up. I'd rather just say, and I've earmarked, right. So I'd rather it say, I almost want to just delete 2819. I'd rather just strike 2819. I think it's the easiest way to do that.
We need to forward it though that unused funds automatically go over.
Or just change it, unused funds roll into the following year.
If you strike 2819, it sits there.
Then it just.
Yeah, so that takes care of that.
That fits what our practice is.
So is your amendment to add his 6 rules and amend and strike 2819? Is that your
Yes,
amendment?
that is my amendment.
I'll second your amendment.
Any discussion on that? Voting on the amendment to strike 2819, raise your right hand. Those opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously. Back to the original motion, so it's that amendment plus what I said. Any discussion?
Do we want to put a cap? We're talking about rolling over funds. There was a comment about
Bankroll.
Do we want to limit put a cap on how much?
Because a lot of times, for example, like Bakersfield Community Center was bought with rec funds. When I was on the school board, I was the chairman at the time. We had a price of $150,000. So Tom Ponder was saving his $50,000 allocation to get up there. So he may run into your cap. Neil Smith did the same thing with the Liberty Performing Arts Center. we weren't gonna give it to him. That was the price, $160,000. He had to wait 3 years to, save up that money. So they may run into that cap.
But I would say, based on what's previously happened, we all get a chance to vote on that, so we could vote against it. If a counselor's banking all of it, we could try to pressure them into doing elsewise, and they can also be voted out by their constituents because they didn't fund swim lessons anymore. I think there is a little bit of, I see what you're saying, but I think, especially if there is now transparency that a rec board has to review, that means the rec board would have made recommendations for several funds that you are then publicly voting no to because you want to bank it. You're on the record, you're doing that publicly, a board committed, and we all saw it. I think now that there's more transparency and light in it, I feel it's a little more okay if you do need to bank it, but based on, I know you have.
And I think if you said this is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, then you're on the record. I will say historically, we have more requests. Y'all's districts typically have more requests than you have money for.
Any other discussion?
That's just my thought.
Any other discussion on the motion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, same sign, passes unanimously. Any other thoughts, Chris, at the end of the agenda?
My only other thought is I'll repeat what I said before. It is interesting to me that the only fund that we have at the discretion to hand people in need, now that ARPA's done, ARPA gave us a few years of getting to help people. The only fund we've created as a council is for recreation. And I would just like to, I just think that's interesting to know. We now no longer have ARPA, and we've now defined recreation. Do we have any other way that we can respond when big requests come in? And is there any concept of banking an emergency request fund or a nonprofit launch fund for new ones? Like, I'd like to start thinking about some creative ideas. Some council long ago decided that recreation was the thing. What else do we need in this county for all the various needs we have?
Any other thoughts on what we talked about tonight? Anybody? Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Here a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, same sign, passes